We're going to finish our Part 5 evolution notes by going over the endosymbiotic theory and a couple check-in questions at the end. The endosymbiotic theory explains how the first eukaryotic cells arose. The first cells were prokaryotic, which, if you recall, are cells that are small and simple. They do not have a nucleus, and they do not have membrane-bound organelles. Meanwhile, our eukaryotic cells are larger, more complex, have a nucleus, and have membrane-bound organelles. Looking at the diagram below, the first cell that we see over on the left-hand side shows a cell with DNA, but no membrane-bound organelles, no nucleus surrounding that DNA. So we're looking at a prokaryotic cell over on the left-hand side. You'll notice there's some infoldings of the plasma membrane. As we move to the middle picture over here, those infoldings of the plasma membrane are pushing further in towards the cell. Our DNA is still not engulfed by anything. In our final picture, those infoldings of the plasma membrane have integrated fully into our cell. This is the precursor to organelles that we've talked about, such as the endoplasmic reticulum, and then what could become our nuclear envelope and nucleus, which would surround our DNA. Another part of the endosymbiotic theory describes how cells are different sizes. Some are larger while some are smaller. A larger ancestral cell is thought to have engulfed a much smaller aerobic prokaryotic cell. This small aerobic prokaryotic cell was able to use oxygen and create ATP. Initially, when the bigger cell engulfed the smaller cell, the two lived together. Over time, though, that small aerobic bacterium lost its ability to live independently and eventually became what's known as the mitochondria. This would have been a precursor to one of our very early heterotrophic eukaryotic cells. Another event that would have created another precursor to eukaryotic cells would be a larger cell engulfing a smaller photosynthetic bacteria. The small photosynthetic bacteria would have been able to use light energy to convert that into chemical energy. Just like before, initially the small photosynthetic bacterium would have been able to live together with this larger cell that had engulfed it, but over many generations eventually became unable to live independently and became what we now know as the chloroplast. Right now, we are going to go over our check-in questions. In our check-in questions, I want you to look at A, B, and C to determine which of these diagrams is trying to represent coevolution, convergent evolution, and divergent evolution. You can also look at the picture to the right of your notes with the wolf and the dogs, and you can label that evolution as convergent, or divergent evolution. Pause the video and try this on your own now. Now that you have tried the check-in questions on your own, we're going to go over what you should have come up with. For A, you should have come up with divergent evolution. If you look in the beginning of time, you have a common ancestral species which over time diverged or became different. For B, you should have come up with convergent evolution. You have very different ancestral species. Over time, they are becoming more and more similar. And lastly, you should have come up with coevolution for C, where you have two species that evolve with each other. In our last example, you have the wolf, and then you have our different dogs. Hopefully you came up with divergent evolution for this.